Today on B2B Revenue Leaders, I'm joined by Nick Bennett. Nick is the Director of Evangelism and Customer Marketing at Alyce. And on this episode, we're chatting about all things customer marketing, from net revenue retention being more important than annual recurring revenue, to strategies for distributing customer content, and also how to use events to really build affinity with your customers. Hey, Nick, welcome to the show. How's your Monday going so far?
Sorry, it's going well. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Yeah, so this one, customer marketing is something I honestly don't know a lot about. Like I manage the customer marketing, so it'll be interesting for me to dive in and learn a bit from you. But I want to start it off with, I ask, on a forum here, what's your marketing hot take? And I loved yours. It was ARR or NRR is more important than ARR. So I want to dive into that. But before we do you mind giving just a couple quick definitions so everyone knows what we're talking about?
Yeah, so NRR meaning net revenue retention, ARR meaning annual recurring revenue. So from a marketing perspective, most marketing teams are actually focused on the acquisition side of it, which is the ARR side of the business to help sales. Customer marketing, at least for the most part, and I'm kind of like you. I've only been doing customer marketing for like 3 months. I don't really know what I'm doing. But like I do know that saving your current customers is going to cost a lot less than to acquire new ones. And
Mhm.
so I think being aligned with CS and their vision of revenue retention, and even gross revenue retention, which kind of plays into that, as well, is equally important.
Yeah, and I think there's always that tipping point too, where you need more new business than you're churning each year, or else you just stagnate and you flatline, right? So if you can get that net revenue retention over 100%, you kind of have that growth vector running in the background. So I know that's the goal for everyone, but in your eyes, what are a couple steps people can take to get there and actually improve that number?
Yeah, I think and you kind of brought up a good point over the 100%. I was actually talking to a company earlier today, and their NRR is 140%, which is
Wow.
phenomenal. Like it's
Yeah.
actually one of the highest that I think I've heard of. And like we internally still need to do a lot of work on like the NRR side of the business. We understand that, which is why we're shifting so many of our resources from ARR to the retention side of it, because we know that we want to see our customers thrive. The customers that use us and like us absolutely love us, and they take us
Mhm.
everywhere they go. I think part of the thing is to get to that point, you need customer marketing, and it's really interesting because I feel like lately with the layoffs in tech and everything that's been going on, you're seeing customer marketers get hit with layoffs in some of these cases. I know
Yeah.
personally a few of them that have, and I don't know the reasoning behind it. It's kind of weird. It's like, okay, like, you're in a down market. Like, why wouldn't you want customer marketing there? And you're cutting it to what? Focus on just CS driving that side of it. I think
Mhm.
you really need a resource on the marketing side to help develop and build advocates within your customer base. It's to get people excited to want to work with you and to have those loyal people that will bring you company to company. The CS can only do so much. And I work really closely with CS, but I think that the marketer, especially if you're a marketer that's selling to other marketers, it makes it a lot more enjoyable and something that people can get along with. And
Mhm.
there's a variety of things that you can really focus on to get there. But I think the communication aspect is going to be one of the most important. It's like, are you actually listening to your customers at the end of the day? Are you talking to them? I can't tell you how many marketers I talk to that say, "Oh, I don't talk to customers. Sometimes I'll listen to a gong call or whatever, but like, if sales tells me something or CS tells me something, I'll go off that, but I'm not actually talking to them myself." And I spend about 7 to 10 calls a week right now where I'm talking to customers and prospects actually. And it will help me better inform what the strategy should be from a marketing standpoint going forward.
Nice. I want to definitely talk about kind of the customer conversation talk, but I want to highlight a point you mentioned there on, customer marketers kind of getting cut in the environment we're in. And, with our solution, if you look at it on paper, our ideal buyer is customer marketers. But what we found even before this is they don't get the budget that they deserve, right? Like even before, the layoffs, the environment, there's always been that kind of, this is an afterthought. Let's pour it into lead gen, which I personally think that needs to shift. But yeah, I do want to dive into what you said about talking to customers. So on those calls, let's move the prospect side, off to the side. But with customers, are you coming in as a subject matter expert? Are you just talking through their use case? Like, what's the most bang for the buck there?
Yeah, I would say it's more of this a strategy call. It's a little, again, it's easier for me because I've been one, I was an Alice customer before I even
Yeah.
came here, but two, I've been using gifting and direct mail for like 7 years now. So like I understand where to deploy these strategies across the entire buyer's journey, what I've seen work well, what may not have worked as well, but suggestions on how to tweak that or something to maybe your industry or your segment or whatever.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times it's not like I'm just sitting there listening. It's really just leading a majority of the call of like, hey, you want to roll out ABM? Here's what I have seen. Here's what I personally did. Because before I even joined customer marketing, I was really hired to do ABM initially. Then I moved to like the field marketing and community side of it. And now I'm on the customer marketing side. But I have deployed a lot of these tactics, channel strategies across the entire piece. And yeah, gifting and direct mail sometimes is looked at as a silver bullet, but it should be looked at as an amplifier to a lot of the
Hmm.
other channels that you're running. And that's really my piece there. I'm like that subject matter expert that has done it, that has done it internally, has done it for other companies, has talked to tons of customers now. And I just try to explain to them and visualize what that could look like for them.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned, you've used it before, you've worked in the space for a long time. So there's that added credibility and they probably let their guard down a bit. It's not, oh, sales guy wants to hop on, my quarterly call to sell me more stuff. But the outcome is, if you do a good job with the strategy side, they're going to buy more. So is that where the evangelist side comes in kind of internally? How does that tie in with customer marketing, when you post externally and try to build the brand?
Yeah. So it was something where, my boss, who's our VP of marketing, he came to me right after the start of, I think it was actually probably about 5 months ago now. And he was like, hey, listen, we're entering a down market. At the time, we didn't have anyone focused on like customer marketing. And he was like, hey,
Hmm.
I think you should move over to the retention side of the business. Would you be open to trying it, even knowing you've never done it before? I said, yeah, absolutely. I love new challenges. I said, but I want evangelism as part of that. He was like, all right. He's like, why don't you break down what you think evangelism is, both internally and externally, and then what you think customer marketing should be, both internally and externally. And so I broke down just kind of like everything in a spreadsheet. I presented it to him. He was like, this is exactly what I was thinking. He's like, all right, let's go present it to leadership. So I got
Hmm.
on a call with leadership, presented how I see an evangelist that is a non-executive kind of playing in this space. And they were like, absolutely, I love this. Literally, like, I thought I was going to have to persuade more as a marketer, but like, there was literally no pushback. And so I said, listen, I've been creating content for almost 3 years now. I have people, again, it's marketers to marketers. It's a little bit easier
Hmm.
because that's the majority of my LinkedIn following. And I said, I'm just creating content around different types of things. Originally, it was field marketing, ABM. Now I've been trying to talk more about customer marketing. And I said, the more and more that I talk about these things, people are clicking my profile. They're seeing where I work. They're filling out demo requests saying that they heard about me from LinkedIn or a podcast or something like that. So we know that it's working from a self-reported attribution standpoint. Now, how can we take what I'm doing and make our customers evangelists externally as well? Like we want them to drive a majority of the business to without us having to do it. It's kind of like, I feel like in this space, PLG could do really, really well from like a gifting
Hmm.
standpoint. And I can't tell you how many times customers of ours in certain communities, you can call it dark social if you want to, different communities, different types of calls, leadership meetings, things like that. They bring up one, they're using us, what they like about us, why they picked us. And at that point, it's just people coming in, demo requests, and we drive a couple hundred inbounds per month right now. And so a lot of that, and we see, how did you hear about us? They'll name specific customers. They'll say a customer of yours. Like, so we know that our customers and specific customers are actually referring us to a lot of the people they're interacting with as well.
Yeah, we actually just made that change. So that's super interesting. Like we added self-reported attribution maybe month and a half ago.
Nice.
And turns out all our organic is just people telling their friends to come come sign up, right? So it kind of changes your strategy a bit. And I think it makes it easier to pitch leadership because, I've been in situations where you could pitch that evangelist role and they would say, okay, but you're not talking about Alyce. Like, how are they going to know? How are you going to figure out if this is working? So is that kind of your approach there? Just put out good content, build your LinkedIn profile as basically a landing page,
Yeah, pretty
and then
much.
go from there.
Exactly. And like on, how like on LinkedIn where it says like every 90 days, there's like X amount of people that have like looked at your profile. So
Yeah.
like for the last year and a half, I've been averaging anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 views on a 90-day rolling window. And I show leadership this. I say, look, like all these people are clicking my profile. They're seeing where I work.
Mhm.
They're then probably going to learn more. And I can't tell you how many people have come through that way. And I said, I don't need to talk about Alyce unless there's a specific big launch or something. People can easily tell by clicking my profile, but it's getting them to want to, one, read your content, that you're people buy from people, that you're a
Mhm.
actual decent human being, but two, that like your profile is optimized so that when they do click it, they say, oh, cool. That's a catchy headline. Like it caught me. I see what he does at Alyce. I see what else he's passionate about. See as he has a podcast. And so you start to get to know people a little bit more.
Yeah, and it just has a better impact than, if it was Alyce putting up this content as a
Right.
company, doesn't really hit the same. So some companies do that extremely well, right? Like there's a few companies who their LinkedIn company page, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're killing it. But in general, yeah, you need that kind of personal touch. So quick question there, because you mentioned, you're a marketer selling and talking to marketers. Is that what you'd recommend from the evangelist side? So say you sold cybersecurity software to IT people. Should it be your CTO, director of IT type pitching? Like, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. And so a good example of this, before I came to Alyce, I worked for a company that we sold and marketed to developers and engineers. And so our CTO was actually like our evangelist, subject matter
Yeah.
expert, where like when there was in-person events, like people would line up to meet this guy. He had a huge Twitter following, like big into Twitter. Like he worked for a lot of great companies as like, you know, basically just same as everyone else. He came up through the ranks and became a CTO, and like we just put him in front of everyone and they absolutely loved it. Like if I was to go and like be that person, like it wouldn't make sense. And so I think
Yeah.
it definitely depends on the type of industry that you're in. Like it's sales tech, martech. You're starting to see this more and more. Nick Posey is another person that does this really well for DemoStack right now. Jen Allen from the Challenger. Like there's more and more people that are creating these roles for themselves. And I was talking to a VC a week ago, and they were saying that they've been talking to a lot of their portfolio companies, and in 2023 they actually plan to start to develop evangelist like roles where they're bringing
Mhm.
on like subject matter experts or content creators because they see the value in it.
Yeah, I had Amelia Taylor on last week, who's doing the
Yeah.
evangelist thing as well. Kind of
Yep.
more from a sales perspective, but
Yep.
same thing. It's really about creating that role and saying, this is what I'm good at. I like interacting with people. I'm going to provide value here. So I like that it's going that route. Maybe I'm skeptical on the VC side where they're going to push it maybe in the wrong direction in certain cases, and it won't be as authentic. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I do want to talk too a bit about, jumping back to customer marketing. I have my own thoughts here. I want to hear yours on the distribution side. So, a lot of people create customer content. They have a wealth of customer stories. You get multiple every week, I'm sure, just by talking to people. So how do you think about distribution, and maybe what are some of the pitfalls and mistakes that customer marketers make there?
It's a good question. And it's something where like I've actually been planning out our like from an educating customer standpoint, where can we actually focus for like Q4 and like the first half of next year? Like some of it's low hanging fruit, some of it's more, I guess, a little bit deeper than that. But like I try to break it into, all right, educating customers is the goal, educating and inspiring, really. So I run a customer email biweekly, and like there's so many marketers that say like, oh, email's dead, and like no one really reads it. But I am actually writing emails on behalf of our VP of CS. And so we send out these biweekly product focused emails, but she's been adding video and I've been testing a couple different things. And like the one, the open rate's almost 60% on all of
Mm.
them. Yeah, I mean, it's your customer base, but we're sending it to end users as well. People that maybe we've never actually talked to that just use the product. Maybe they're a BDR, an SDR, or something like that. So we've been seeing huge reach on like the open rate. The click rate has been through the roof. People have been leaving us calls. They've been leaving us emails saying, wow, like, one, I didn't know that these integrations, for example, existed. How can I take advantage of these upsell opportunities? And it was literally so easy. It's just an email I set up in Marketo that I just, upload the new user list every other week. So that's one thing from a distribution. So focusing on product, focusing on Alyce updates, coming from our VP of CS. The second thing is from an onboarding perspective, how do you automate the nurture? And so this one's an interesting one. We don't have, it probably makes more sense if you have tons and tons of customers. I'm talking about like thousands of them,
Yeah.
but why not? If you can automate to a certain degree and supplement it with manual stuff in between, we're trying to automate the onboarding so that we see time to value a lot quicker. And that's a big thing for us from like a KPI metric standpoint. How do we deliver time to value? If someone signs a 12-month contract with us and they're in onboarding because they're not really adopting or sending gifts and it takes them 3 months to get out of it, then they really only have 9 months to see value from the product. My goal is to get that onboarding and time to value in about 25 days, is the goal. And so like, we're trying to automate some of these things to help a lot of our customers there. The other thing is customer events. So like lunch and learns, VIP events, like, we've always been event heavy in a lot of what we do, but a lot of it has been so focused on like the acquisition side of it. Why don't we celebrate and surprise and delight the customer base that we have and not just, go sign up for a trade show or something, but do these really curated, elevated experiences that make them feel special. The next one is content. And from a content delivery, we release a lot of blogs. We release a lot of content around that. But there's really 3 big buckets that I kind of break it out to. So each year we do a state of gifting report. And so that state of gifting report analyzes hundreds of thousands of data points of our product. And how can we then take all those data points and talk about what other customers are seeing from success standpoint? Where could they be doing better? What are the top gifts that are being sent? And so we put this out every year. People absolutely love it because it's non-biased. It's just, hey, here's, all these customers of Alyce and all these hundreds of thousands of gifts that have been sent. And we're just compiling all that information in an ungated report. And so we have that piece. And then the second piece is we have an original research report. Now, this one is a non-biased report. We're actually not going to be putting it out. We're partnering with someone on this one. But we'll put it out an original research report on educating the market on why gifting. Like a lot of people say like, oh, gifting, like there's so many different choices for direct mail platforms out there. But a lot of times people are just going up against the status quo, sending gifts off Amazon or like, oh, I can go buy a gift card off someone. Why do I need a $30,000 platform to do this? And then it's just repurposing a lot of the existing content that we have. For example, customer stories. And I think that also falls under advocacy. But these customer stories, like I shouldn't say hate. I feel like case studies are so boring. Like who writes a bad case study? No one. It's like, you're going to fluff it up. You're going to make it sound all nice and pretty. But I would much rather a technical playbook. And so I'm focusing on relaunching this from a customer story playbook standpoint, where we have 2 of them so far. And I have 3 of them in production right now. And so again, just highlighting the customer's use cases and how they actually got to those points. Because you could say, oh, XYZ saw a 500% ROI increase. Sounds awesome, right? But if you don't actually tell whoever's reading it how they got there, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. So that's the advocacy standpoint as well as content. And then the other one is G2 reviews and referrals. So G2, I've been driving a lot of reviews through there, which ultimately drives a lot of referrals, drives a lot of inbound requests each month. So definitely a big focus. And then the last thing is a customer advisory board. And we actually don't have one right now. But it's something that I am putting together now with a launch in Q1, and really to focus on just not being so reactive and being more proactive. And I think, a lot of internal people will be like, well, should customer marketing own this? And I'm like, absolutely. Because like, one, like, I've done events before and I understand it, but I understand how this all goes together, how product is involved, how CS is involved, how leadership and the executive team is involved. So those are kind of all the things that I would say from like a distribution standpoint of like where you can educate customers falls. And at least my focus for the next 6 to 8 months.
Nice. So there's a lot of ways I can go there. I have a bunch of notes I was thinking. So a couple things there. A lot of it seems to be focused actually on the customer, right? So you're looking at their needs rather than, oh, I need this industry's case study on my website so I can tick this box and say I did a good job, right? Which is a bit of a shift because I've been guilty of that. I'm not slighting everyone. Like in the past, I've had my little spreadsheet of, I need this industry, this use case study.
Yep.
Do people read them? Probably not. So I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners as well on that customer playbook, right? Like anytime I've interviewed customers and talked to them, they just want to hear what other customers are doing. Like that's their key. Maybe they don't have the time to do it, but that playbook solves it. So I want to hear, I think that's a great idea. How are you going to get that out as well? Like, how are you going to promote that to the customers?
It's funny because I've been getting that question from our leadership team for a while now. And so it's, ideally a few different ways. So yeah, lots of times people with case studies or stories or whatever, the sales team will occasionally send it out. It will live on the website. No one drives people to unless they organically come across it. For us, the goal is to take a lot of this content and chop it up into micro content. And you're taking this content, whether it's in paid ads, whether it's in email, like nurture sequences or whatever, but it's all about how you distribute it. Is it in, events that we're doing? But no one wants to read and we do these on video as well. So we have all the video plus the written content, but it's all about chopping it up into micro-sized pieces that are easy to consume, that are easy to send out for our BDR team, for our AE team to put out in their cadences that they're sending out as well. So we're starting to do a lot of that, but to be honest, we haven't leveraged our customer case studies in this way because they've always just been on our website and they were kind of like, we did these like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And they haven't been updated since like literally maybe 3 weeks ago, I got out the first one. So it's just changing everyone's mindset to say like, hey, the goal here is to distribute these with the intention that we're going to retain current customers because it's a tactical playbook. Also, this is going to just not by chance, but like it's also going to help on the acquisition side because people are going to want to say, oh, by using Alyce, I was able to do XYZ to drive top of funnel. Cool. Okay. Makes sense. I'm going to check it out at least.
Yeah, it's kind of taking that, content pillar approach that content marketing's been doing for years. Right? Like what I do with this podcast, honestly, I record it, chop it up. I get a bunch of different content for different parts of the funnel. Maybe this ends up as an ad.
Yep.
So it's doing that in customer marketing, which for whatever reason hasn't been done that much.
Yep.
And I like the full funnel impact as well of this is something we do. We're a testimonial company. So of course we do this is, we use those testimonials in 6-second bumper ad, a 15-second LinkedIn ad, a 45-second, handling a common objection. So our sales team has it. So you have those component pieces and it's better than me writing copy and saying, hey, you should buy us. Here's why, right? Like the voice of the customer is just so much stronger there.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And like, again, I feel like it's modern day marketing and like, you get it and like lots of companies get it, but there's still the companies that are stuck in like the lead gen, like MQL, like rabbit hole that like don't care about distributing content or like thinking about that way. And like, they just would rather like pay to gate a ebook on their website or something like that.
Yeah. And to me, it comes back to an alignment thing. And maybe I'm biased here because my role, like it's VP revenue. So it's marketing, sales, and kind of account management altogether. But I think that's where these things fall flat, right? Like you would create this leadership or sales or whoever would say, okay, great, but does it drive revenue? And then, you have to make your case there. But But if you know what you're doing, like how you built this out, I feel that's an easy sell. Customers are easier to sell to. They already bought from you once, and customer stories are more impactful. Like it should kind of be a no-brainer, but sometimes it's a bit of a fight for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think it's all about doing them the right way though. I mean, I don't know how many companies are actually chopping up a lot of this and creating micro content and distributing it through a bunch of different channels that way. Like, I think
Hmm.
there's definitely the companies that get it are, but like, how do you change the mindset of the companies that don't get that? I mean, I don't know. I just think that they probably have that same old school mindset in a lot of things as well, not just this.
Yeah, it's, kind of the early adopter. Eventually people come over and some people are going to lag and there's not a whole lot you can do there.
Yep.
Um, One other topic, because your background's mostly in field marketing, right? A lot of it. You spent a ton of time there. Again, I know very little about field marketing. I haven't spent much time there. And you mentioned events a little bit. So how are you tying that together at Alyce? Like, what are you taking from your field and marketing background and is helping you on the customer side?
Yeah, so I guess first off, field marketers in my mind should always be tied to revenue, but a lot of times they are focused on middle and bottom of the funnel. Their demand gen team is the one that is creating the demand, bringing them into the funnel. Field marketing through events and a variety of other channels are the ones that are really accelerating those opportunities to close one. However, I think you can have a similar mindset on the customer side. Like in a lot of the events that you do, you're not just spraying and praying and just doing events to do events because let's be honest, they're expensive. Why not, hey, if you have a renewal coming up with these 10 customers and you really need those 10 customers to renew, let's do a bottom of the funnel type of elevated experience for them that's truly VIP. Maybe they're
Hmm.
creating new Jordans or something like that. Something where they get to walk away with a nice pair of Nikes. I don't know. Something that will again make them feel like surprised and delighted to not go there to be pitched, but go there to network with peers, learn best practices from other customers, but also just to understand that, like, hey, I care about you. I want you to know that. Do we have renewals coming up? Absolutely. But still, I want you to feel like your voice is heard. I want you to feel like you have access to the right people. And I want you to feel like you have the ability to have us help you succeed. And I think that's where events can really play a huge piece in on the customer side. The renewals, just celebrations, things like that. But honestly, a big piece of it is like churn prevention or
Hmm.
upsell potential. For us, we don't really have a huge like upsell side of the business. We're kind of like just a platform, but there's so many companies that maybe they have different product lines or something like that, and you're trying to get into different pieces of the organization. It's a great way to use events for that too.
I think the other thing that helps with too is sometimes customers are going to churn and it's outside the hands of your champion, right?
Yeah.
Like, but if you give them that experience, they're going to move to a new company in 2 years, 3 years. It's kind of how life works lately.
Yep.
And if you do that experience, they're going to bring you with them. Like we've seen that a ton as well. How did you hear from us? I used you at this company. And if you don't give a good customer experience, that's not going to happen. And I can name a handful of companies where I've brought them, like MarTech companies, basically. I brought them on at every company I've worked at because I know they work. They treated me well. They have a good experience. So that's kind of that wouldn't tie into NRR. It probably should. Um, but it is kind of a forgotten piece, I think, that can have a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I was actually reading something a couple weeks ago that was saying right now, taking a look at like, I think it was 2021 and 2022, the average tenure of a marketer in B2B tech was 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And so, like, you think about that year to a
Yeah.
little over a year and a half, it's like, yeah, like, I want to, like, it's funny because my mom works for Raytheon. She's worked there for like, she just hit her like 45th anniversary or something. Only job she's ever
Yeah.
had. She's like, you've had 7 jobs in like 10 years. And I was just like, Mom, it's not the same as it used to be. And I was like, also, I've gone through acquisitions. Like, I worked for startups, all that good stuff. And she was just like, I was like, but still, people that treat me right, I bring technology with me. Like, for
Yeah.
example, Six Sense. I'm a 3 time Six Sense customer now. And like, it's just, is it an expensive product? Absolutely. But do I know, one, being a power user of it now, like, do I see the value in everything that it can do? And have I became friends with a lot of the people that work there? Absolutely. And I think that plays into it. And same with a lot of other products. It will always be something that I'll bring or champion if I'm not the right person within the company.
Yeah. And to kind of bring that full circle before we wrap up, that's kind of the customer evangelist side, right? Like that's what you're trying to do here. Like what Sixth Sense did for you,
Yep.
you want to do for your customers and Alyce. And then it kind of just a flywheel effect is you get more customers, you get more advocates, it grows and grows, and you don't have to chase the new business as much, which is hard. Like honestly, just in this environment too, getting new business is tough. So focus on the customers.
100% with you there. And it's like, and again, I've been trying to solve these pain points that our buyers have been looking to solve for 10 years. So like I
Yeah.
can relate to them because I understand the problems that they were looking to do. And like, if funny, like weird, I guess not funny, weirdly, I don't know. Like I'm friends with a lot of these people that again, like they've been reading my content for years. We've been at events together. We
Mhm.
used to travel the trade show circuit together. So like you get to know these people over time
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, for sure. It's community, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how I buy everything now is I'm not going to take a reference call. I'm going to post in a Slack group and ask, hey, anyone use this? What's it actually like? And go to people I trust.
Yep.
So
I'm with you.
I'm going to wrap it up here. That was awesome. I learned a bunch. I'm adding a account management, customer success type role in the new year. So there's a couple of things here I'm going to jot down and borrow. If our listeners want to learn more, connect with you, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. Find me there, shoot me a DM, ask me anything. I try to be as helpful as I can. And hey, if there's it's a small world, so you never know. I might be able to help you now. You might be able to help me in a year if I don't have a job.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Nick. I'll include, your LinkedIn profile and some info about Alyce in the show notes for everyone, but thanks for joining me. So my key takeaway in this episode is really that we don't focus enough on content distribution when it comes to customer marketing. Our customer stories are very powerful. They build trust, but we put in a case study, we slap it on the website and people don't see it. So really focusing on chopping up the content into digestible micro content, distributing it effectively all throughout the funnel is going to have the biggest impact. And personally, I think customer marketers should have a bit more budget to do that and should be given, a bit more power to really influence all revenue throughout the entire sales cycle. Thanks for joining me. Again, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to go leave us a review, I would love that. I'd really appreciate it. So head on over to Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, click subscribe. We put out a new episode every Tuesday. So join us for the ride and shoot me a message if you have any guests that you want to see on the show. Take care.